works, as much as possible, talk about your ideas. Somebody's listening, somebody's watching. Do good, be a good person. By being a good person, you attract goodness to yourself. But I wish you all the best. Make sure you prioritize the people who love you and love yourself. Love yourself unconditionally. Continue to enforce your boundaries. The more boundaries you enforce, the more refreshing your life gets.
Hi y'all, and welcome back to my channel. I feel it's been a minute since I did a sit down video where I looked at the camera, didn't do vlogs, just had a one-on-one conversation. I don't know if my face is too oily, but let me see. I think it works. Today I would like to talk about a few lessons that I've learned in 2022. I feel like it'll be nice to do or continue this one-on-one sit-down videos where I just talk about life experiences and share what I feel or how I believe I would act in certain situations. My last sit-down video was probably a year ago, so pardon me, but this year has been pretty exciting for me. I got promoted twice. I got a double promotion. Was able to work on a project with Meta, which is also known as Facebook, old Facebook. I was able to become an author. Watch out, I'm probably going to talk about that book once it's publicly released and shared. I was able to do a lot of workshops. Speaking about data, I was able to collaborate with a few brands that made me excited. And something I was hoping for materialized around November, which was what sealed the year for me. So this year was pretty good, but I also know that this year put me in a position where I had to reflect a lot, stayed still a lot, was quiet a lot. And I'm just hoping that in 2023 I get to come out of that shelf, which I tagged hibernation, and explore life and just live and be an adult. I feel like I have constantly been in this survival mode, and as many people are saying, next year I just want to live. I want to let my head down. I don't want anything to make me feel sad or angry. I just want to be. So that said, I just want to talk about a few lessons that I've learned in 2022, and I will start with the first one. The first one is I learned in 2022 not to be a people pleaser. I feel like the one thing that having a strict upbringing did for me was to make sure that I tried to do right by people, even to my detriment. And so when I started growing up or became an adult and started forming friendships and people, I found myself in very compromising situations where I would try to be this very good person, and even when people were stepping on my toes, I didn't know how to address it. So what I decided to do this year was not necessarily address the people, because really confrontation is not necessarily my thing, except it comes to my doorstep and I'll address it. But when I'm not confrontational with people and I know that their behavior is not something that brings me peace, what I do is reduce my conversation time with them, really reduce my response time to their messages, respond to them only when they are physically in front of me or when they reach out personally. I don't go an extra mile to be good friends with them. I don't try to be any other thing, which is something I would have done in the past. So this year I really learned to stop being a people pleaser. I also stayed in my house. The two things I learned this year is to speak about your problems. You don't know who has the capacity or information that could help you solve them. And so this year what I did was I spoke about my needs. I reached out to people who I felt had more experience, could support me in that situation, which is one thing there's a caveat. When you reach out to people for support, make sure that they have the ability to support you. or that they have information to support you. You don't just tell anyone about your problems, because at the end of the day, people are just rooting for you to fail. It's a sad fact, but it's the fact. So if you reach out to people about your problems, one of two things: they either have knowledge on how you can solve that problem, or they can solve it themselves. And I learned this lesson from one of my very good friend, Evelyn, who would say, Grace, you don't just reach out to people who cannot solve your problem. So why are you telling them that you have a problem? I know they say a problem half shared is half solved, but it's only solved if these people have information or access to support you and solve that problem for you. So that's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, read, write as much as you can, document your sources as much as you can, do research as much as you can if you're in an academic or professional field, attend more conferences, read more books, upskill, get a skill that you know is needed that can support large number of people, and be an active participant in solving those problems. So if you're in a very large, let's say if you're in a big organization, think about a skill that the organization needs or has a shortage of. Upskill yourself with that particular skill and train people. That way you are able to add value wherever you are. And I think for me, although I didn't do that excessively, I was able to find people within my organization or my team who had skills that I knew that I could support, and learned as I participated in those opportunities to upskill myself. So one thing about upskilling is that if you also feel like you don't have the relevant skill required, you could look for someone within your team or close to you who has that relevant skill. Tag team with them. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations. When I mean uncomfortable situations where you feel you'll be challenged enough to learn that skill. And once you feel you have gotten enough experience, train more people or train people with that skill. I'm one of those firm believers of fake it till you make it when it comes to skill and talent. The more you feel you can do something even though you cannot do it, the more you try and find skills and resources and people who can help you reach your goal with that skill and be that skill. So people are willing to give you opportunities when they see that there is a willingness and also a drive to pick up a particular skill, even if they know that you don't really know that skill. So people are always willing to give you the opportunity if they know that you're going to be dedicated to learning on the job. So that's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, find an environment or a space that supports your growth. What I did last year, and it was such a huge investment for me, I took the huge savings that I had and got myself a place to live by myself. I'm looking for another additional word, but what I did this year was to find a space I could call mine, to allow me think, to allow me create, to allow me do a lot of things. And I think to a large extent I was able to do all of those things. I found a space to be able to work at or work in, and although I feel like I did not achieve so much, I also did not achieve little. This space that I got allowed me the freedom to be a big girl, to be able to manage my finances, to be able to create more opportunities for myself, to actually just be a big girl. You only start maturing when you are solely responsible for all the bills that you need to pay, especially when it comes to housing. So these days I'm more responsible with my light, with my water, with my feeding, and all of those things. So I'm being a big girl. Another thing I learned this year was to show up for people and show up for my friends, with the little resources that I have. So I believe that one thing that adulting does is that it makes you understand that you need to show up for the people in your life, show up for your friends, and what that does, it makes them understand that you appreciate them. Because I've had people show up for me for my birthdays. I've had people who buy me things. The plant behind me was given to me by a friend. And so what I did was that this year, because I had a little bit of resources, I was able to reach out to people who needed support, buy gifts randomly for people to say thank you, say thank you to people, and just be there and present for them. And I'm trying to be a better person with that also moving forward. Just be a better friend, show up for people. That's one lesson I learned. Another lesson I learned this year was actually to eat. I have had a very bad eating habit. I wake up in the morning, I do all of the tasks that I need to do, and then I don't eat, and then I remind myself by 5 o'clock, oh my god, you've not had breakfast. And what I learned, what that did to me was that I was not able to function at the maximum capacity I knew I could function in. So I would get dizzy very easily, get grumpy during midday when my task needs to be accomplished. And even when I eat, the food has no meaning anymore to my body because I have left myself famished for hours. But also I feel like why I do those things is because I want to keep my body in shape. And I've learned that I can actually just exercise, eat well, and feel comfortable in my own skin. So one lesson I learned this year was to eat as much balanced meals as you can, and just be good with your food, I guess. Another lesson I learned this year was managing time and also having a to-do list. Excuse me. There is nothing more important than a to-do list, my people. If you want to achieve much, write your to-do list, because what that does is that it takes away the time that you have to start thinking of, oh, I have this task I need to accomplish. And that thinking time gets you disorganized instead of just flipping over a book or a spreadsheet that you've put together to just look at the tasks that you need to accomplish and do them. So I learned this year that having a to-do list is very important, especially if you want to be productive. Anyway, so above all, I would say the final lesson is make time for rest. The more time you rest, the more you are able to nourish yourself to come back to do bigger things. There is no reward for anyone who suffers most. I also think that it's important to know yourself, know who you are. The idea of rest is productive. Rest in itself is productive. The more rest you have, the more capacity you are to function. The more capacity you have to function. And I think one last lesson I want to say is that richness, luxury, or whatever you guys want to call it, or feeling like you have wealth, is a thing of the mind. You have to decide inwardly and tell yourself that poverty is not for you. Like, I know I'm telling you this thing in a very theoretical way, but you have to look at yourself and say, you see, poverty, you are not for me. And tell yourself that. Like, look inside yourself and say, you know what? I came to this life and Jesus died on the cross. That death, he died on the cross. He died with all the sin, all the poverty, everything I need to suffer. So, in this flesh that I'm in, I will enjoy the riches of this world. I don't know what I'm telling you. But really, outside the joke, you have to mentally decide that poverty is not something you would use your two eyes and see. And work towards it. Like, write it down. And strive. I feel like once you put yourself in that position where, and I know that is a lot of privilege I'm speaking from, but I also know I don't have a lot of privilege. But whatever you find your hands to do it well, and always think, if you have to pause on some life changes, except you're marrying a billionaire, if you have to pause on, doing some certain things, please do. And for some people, marriage is what brings them luck. But you have to, if you have to focus on yourself and give yourself, like, look for something that you can do that can just bring you out of poverty, and put your mind to it and do it. And actually do not think about being poor as much as you often as you can, even if you really do not have much. Put yourself in a mindset of being wealthy, and everything will work out fine. That is the final lesson, my people. Yes. In fact, sometimes it's just meeting the right person, talking about the right ideas, finding the right skill. Things will open the way of wealth for you. I know for me, it's procrastination. Reduce procrastination. The more you take away procrastination and do the things you need to do when you need to do them, and dedicate yourself to achieving one thing at least every 5 or 3 months that can push you towards being wealthy, you will get there. Say I'm talking like Mama G, you will get there. Okay, but really, put yourself in positions. Find networks. As much as possible, talk about your ideas. Somebody's listening, somebody's watching. Do good. Be a good person. By being a good person, you attract goodness to yourself. And I hope in 2023 that every wish that you have for yourself will come to pass. Say amen. I am preaching here. Say amen. I wish you all the best. Make sure you prioritize the people who love you. Hold your community close, and love yourself. Because if you love yourself, you're able to extend that love to other people. Love yourself unconditionally. Continue to enforce your boundaries. The more boundaries you enforce, the more refreshing your life gets. The more boundaries you enforce, the more refreshing your life gets. And that is the end of this video. If you're new here, please do not forget to subscribe. I look forward to being more of a consistent YouTuber in 2023 because I'm easing off IG. I feel like I have dedicated so much resources to IG to people who just want to keep watching, but do not necessarily support. I hope none of them are watching this. Anyways, I hope you have a fruitful and wonderful 2023. And I'm looking forward to the new year with you. Stay safe, be a good person. Support people as much as you can with your resources and with your skills. And that way you find your way to prosperity. Bye.